Well, someone did predict this, but you know what's not so good are the banks. Banks are still struggling hard. Just a week after JP Morgan and 10 other banks deposited $30 billion into First Republic, they are still suffering. They sold off 47% today. They seem like they can't be saved. That is why JP Morgan is advising them on strategic alternatives, including capital raise. What that really means is that JP Morgan is advising them how to go bankrupt and how to sell themselves for pennies on the dollar. One of the two. Okay, because at this point, they have lost the faith of the people, of the investors. It is on a downward spiral right now, and it is not looking good. It's not looking good. Did the bullet get dodged? I mean, the National Bank of Switzerland just gave them a $54 billion injection. That seems to have gone away, right? This morning was reported like $13 billion of bonds disappeared. I mean, all this money just disappeared left and right. Let's not forget the inflation it's going to hit the people of Switzerland pretty soon. But here's the irony. You know, just 5 years ago, the CTO then called Bitcoin a giant bubble. Did not like Bitcoin at all. You can't just mint, trillions out of thin air with Bitcoin. You can't, right? Unlike all these banks that are highly leveraged, overplayed their hand, and now they're all asking for bailouts because they're deemed too big to fail. $300 billion within the last 2 weeks, okay, got printed out of thin air, and this was basically given to banks and the FDIC. So today he mentioned about like $170 billion or $180 billion that was given to FDIC because they needed it, and then the rest probably went into the banks that needed it too. They didn't disclose which banks needed the money, but where did this money come from? Well, that's something that he does not discuss during these Q&A sessions. No one asked him about it. I think they're prohibited from asking him about it, right? But you know what? Let me show you guys something. We don't need to ask him about it because he already stated where the money's coming from. This was a 60-minute interview, I believe, from a couple years ago, about 2 years ago. All right, so listen to what Powell said about where the money comes from.
Say you simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
CZ made an interesting comment tonight. Every decade or so, the same banks fail. We keep them alive, then repeat. More costly each time. Meanwhile, it is incredibly difficult for new banks to be approved to enter the market to compete. New banks are also required to operate in exactly the same way as the old failing ones. Free market? ? It does make you wonder, though. You have all the rules and regulations in place, so as a newcomer in the space, you have to follow the same rules and regulations, which could be quite cumbersome and very difficult. Yet, despite everything that's in place, you still have banks that go under. Why is that? Because you can't have enough rules and regulation to regulate and control greed. Greed of the banks, leverage, the highly leveraged positions that the banks have. You can't do it. Before I move on, I want to talk about privacy really quick. Are you concerned about your internet activity being monitored? Or are you concerned that centralized exchanges are tracking your location through your IP? If so, and you want to keep your activity and location private, then check out NordVPN. NordVPN helps protect your online privacy and security through their virtual private network spread across the world. Using NordVPN, you can hide your IP address, encrypt your internet connection, shielding your digital life from prying eyes like internet service providers, network administrators, crypto exchanges, and even from the government. NordVPN uses military-grade encryption and has a strict no-log policy to keep your data safe from hackers and cyber criminals. Plus, with over 5,000 servers in 59 countries, you can easily access the internet anywhere in the world while being protected. Whether you're at home or on the go, NordVPN has you covered. If you want to learn more about NordVPN, check out the URL in the description of this video. This was brought to my attention this morning. Some of you guys may have noticed the number 6 altcoin on CMC, XRP, is pumping. And the reason for that is because of my very educational video that I rarely show, but when I do, XRP pumps up to the moon. Okay, so that's reason number one. Reason number two is there were some favorable, or maybe just one, I don't know how many came out today, some favorable court rulings that definitely helped Ripple in their case against Gary Gensler and the SEC. So, what are those cases? One came not from today, but from before, where the judge excluded one of the witnesses, the expert witnesses from the SEC. And that guy was the one that basically established the rules on what is a security and what's not. But today, guess what? Voyager is also helping Ripple's case because the SEC, they may have slipped up. The SEC may have slipped up big time. We know that Voyager went under. Binance.us is trying to buy Voyager, okay? And the SEC protested. They said, no, they can't buy them. And the judge asked why. And then the SEC says, that's because VGX, Voyager's old token, is a security. And we can't let Binance.us buy that security from them. And then judge is like, prove it. Prove that VGX is a security. And the SEC couldn't. They didn't make even an attempt to prove it's a security. So the judge ruled that out and said, no, that's BS. Okay, and now Ripple is using that. Because basically, if the judge presiding over the Voyager bankruptcy case said that VGX is not a security, well, then that means the SEC doesn't really have any guidelines. There's no definitive guidelines on what's a security and what's not. And this is the major thing that people are complaining about. Speaking of Gary Gensler, they go after now Sushi Swap. The SEC subpoenas head chief Jared Gray and the DAO itself. And apparently they kind of knew this was happening. They set up a $100,000 defense fund, but apparently it's not enough. SEC went after Coinbase today. And here's the thing that irritates me, okay? And this made Coinbase drop like a rock. After they just, hit a new high for this year, they just went down like a rock, as if SEC is trying to make up for something. Well, we know that they're about to lose the Ripple case, right? So now it seems like they want to target someone else because Gary is mad. Gary does not want to lose. And they just warned Coinbase saying that a charge may come. So that it's not definitive that it's coming. And what charge is it? We don't know, right? So this is kind of like a blanket warning shot at Coinbase. Basically, Gary is trying to scare the market. Now, the SEC is not done. They're not just attacking Coinbase, right? But they also charge Tron. Now, I will say this. As badly as I see Gary and the SEC basically attacking crypto, you know what? I think they are probably dead on with this. And I've told you guys this. I don't trust anything that Justin Sun. I don't trust anything from Justin Sun. I don't trust any of his moves, any acquisitions, any of the metrics that show that Tron is in a really good position. I think it's all fake. And this is based on history. Everyone just keeps printing more money. The circulation of money keeps rising because there's an infinite money printer that could be turned on at any given time, right? But when you compare this to Bitcoin's monetary policy, well, it's completely opposite, okay? Look at where we are now. When Bitcoin was first released, the Genesis block, miners were making about 50 Bitcoins per block. Awesome. Then 2012 was cut to 25. 2016 was cut to 12.5. Currently, right now, a miner only gets about 6.25 Bitcoins per block. After 2024, the next halving, 3.1. Then you go to 1.5, and that's 2028. And then 2032, you're getting less than 1 Bitcoin per block. And then you keep going down the road, and then you realize, well, Bitcoin is going to become a lot more scarce in the future. The number that we have now, right, pretty much, I don't want to say that's all that there will ever be, but the future amount that's being released is very, very tiny, and it's only going to get tinier, tinier. This is the monetary policy of Bitcoin, to become more scarce, not to be more plentiful like fiat, like the USD, and like the euro, like everything else that keeps inflating because there's more and more and more and more of it. Bitcoin is going the opposite direction. This is why Bitcoin, I believe, is the best way to hedge against inflation, and it will become the greatest store of value that we have. I honestly believe that is the case. There's nothing else out there that's like Bitcoin. Nothing.